Hello Internet, and welcome to the Collective Arcana. We're a channel all about tabletop gaming, and today we're going to be talking about the brand new, fresh off the presses, Pathfinder 2nd Edition playtest for Secrets of Magic. Two classes, the Magus and the Summoner, both making a return from 1st edition, and will be in that aforementioned Secrets of Magic book, due out in June-ish, I think, of next year, June-ish. And so we're going to do a little bit of play test. And you want to tell them how that works?
Yeah, so basically our job as the players is to try out these classes and kind of give Peso feedback on what we like, what we'd like to see changed, what we feel isn't balanced, that kind of thing. So they've put a link in the actual playtest to submit your feedback, and we have until October 16th, 2020. So we only have about a month, so we wanted to get this out as soon as possible so we can all hop in. This is our first impressions video. We've only had this for about 24 hours, so we're going to do another video later after we've had a chance to actually play some one-shots with these characters. But we kind of wanted to give you a little rundown of kind of what we think at first glance.
Right. And so, as part of that, we should note that we have a lot more experience with Maguses than we do with Summoners.
Yeah.
They both existed in 1E, but I personally never, I think one short campaign I had a Summoner in the party. But I briefly played a Magus, like one adventure I think, had a Magus for a few adventures, and you actually played a Magus as well.
How many levels did I get to, like 8 or something?
I think you played about 8 levels of Magus, yeah.
In 1st edition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, you know, important to note that was a pretty different Magus in that it was an Arch Scion.
Yeah.
But so the Magus is a Gish class, and for those that don't know, that's an old school D&D term. It means that it's half martial, half caster, and it sort of blends those two ideas and concepts. This version of the Magus is like the original version in 1E in that it is a prepared intelligence-based caster using an arcane tradition. So same spell access as a wizard, but one thing you'll quickly notice looking through it, and this is going to be true of both classes, and this is sort of the big shocking...
The big first impression.
Mm-hmm. This is the surprised Pikachu moment.
Yeah.
And that is these classes' spell lists...
See if we can show them.
Or their spells per day. You may notice that you only have about 4 spells at a time.
And then you lose them.
Mm-hmm. As you get higher level spells, your 4 slots that you have move with you. They start at 2, 1 based on your level, but once you get up to 4, that's it, and they'll just keep growing with you to be higher level slots, but you don't backfill those lower level spots.
Right.
There is a feat for both classes to get a couple of extra spell slots, but that is it. 6 at most with investment. And that's certainly strange. That's a very weird thing.
At first glance, I was like, nah.
And that's going to be your first impression, and it's not entirely wrong.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and jump forward a little bit, and we'll say that we feel like, and our friends that we've been speaking to directly, and even sort of most people on the forums agree that 4 may not be the right number.
Yeah.
Not that the limited spell list is by itself, or limited spell slots by itself is a horrible idea. But 4, considering your adventuring day is supposed to be between 3 and 5 fights, and then not including, out of combat options that you may want, I think we can all agree that 4 is not the right number. 6 very well could be, plus those optional 2 bonus ones, but that's part of the playtest is to see and to inform them. One thing to note as we talk about a lot of things, because we're going to kind of give our first impression opinions as well, but one of the things to note is that Pathfinder, Paizo, they tend to release a weaker version so that they can balance up, because it's a lot easier to balance up than balance back, if for no other reason than people are going to feel a lot better about getting something new than having something that they liked taken away. So that's my expectation.
Something else we want to mention, just in case you're not actively playing in 2E, the magic system is quite different.
Yes.
So we actually did a video on how the magic system works in 2E, so if you want to check that out, I'll put a link up here. But just for this, I want to mention the cantrips now level up with you. So that is something to consider. You always do have higher level cantrips with this.
Yes.
Not as powerful, obviously, as a regular spell, but you won't ever be in a situation where you have absolutely no spell because the cantrip does level up with you.
Yes, and some of them scale quite well, some of them less so, but you will have some sort of a reliable fallback option that is going to be somewhat comparable to just making an attack roll for other classes. So you will be able to contribute even if you are out of those actual spell slots. Another thing to consider with these classes and those limited spell slots is items that will give you additional spells or spell slots. For arcane characters like the Magus and one of the versions of the Summoner, Rings of Wizardry will give you some low-level spell slots to backfill those options. Staves and wands are going to be great. And then when we talk about some of the feats, scrolls, of course, are going to be good as well. So with that said, what does the Magus do? So the Magus is, as we said, it's a very limited spell slot, martial and spellcasting mix. We have something sort of similar in the War Priest already, which is a doctrine. We just did a cleric video. Watch that if you want to learn about the War Priest. But the War Priest, it maxes out at expert proficiency for martial attacks and for armor and defense. The Magus goes up to master, and they both War Priest and Magus, max at master spellcaster. So what that means is that the Magus is much more martially viable than the War Priest, which makes up for, in theory, the fewer spells. Whether that's true or not, of course, we'll find out. But it does mean that even if you're out of spells, which you very likely could be, you're still going to have similar proficiency levels to a ranger, while you won't have as many of the action economy and multiple attack penalty exploits that their feats give them. You will at least be as likely to hit at least once per round as many martials that are not named fighter. So that's a good thing. And it means that this class has some longevity even without those spells. The big ticket thing with the Magus is an ability called Spellstrike. And Spellstrike is going to look pretty complicated. You're going to take a first pass and you may not understand it immediately, especially if you don't have high system mastery. I feel like I've got pretty good system mastery and I had to look at it twice. So what it does is it's a free action that is triggered whenever you cast a spell. And it allows you to, instead of delivering that spell as part of the cast, you can charge a weapon with that spell. So the spell has to be able to target a single target, although some spells that have the option to target multiple targets will still apply, because they also have the option to target a single target. And then the way that it works is when you deliver that next strike attack, you can deliver the spell as well. The problem is that you're still spending 2 actions to cast the spell. The spell strike is a free action, but then that weapon attack to deliver the spell is still going to be another standard action. That means that potentially this is a 3-round action activity unless the spell that you're casting is a 1-action spell. There aren't very many of those. The book certainly could add more. The Secrets of Magic seems like a great book to introduce more single action or variable action spells. But based on what we have right now, it's pretty hard to not use your full turn delivering this action. It's a strong action, certainly. It's a big Nova move, but it's one you can only do a few times per day. And because you have to succeed not just on that strike, but per the Spellstrike rules, you also have to succeed on that spell attack roll.
I don't love that.
No, that's pretty crippling. What that means is that odds are you're not going to deliver that spell the first time you try.
I don't think you should have to.
I agree. I think
just from like a logic place.
Right.
It doesn't make sense that you would need to, because you know how to cast the spell, but you do a spell attack roll to see if it lands where you want it to land. So why are we doing 2?
Exactly. If it's charged into the weapon and the weapon has made contact with the attack, why is it not discharging the spell?
Yeah.
Right? And I agree completely.
Yeah. And you said you're probably gonna
Yes, I do.
Homebrew it to where
I do have a workaround, and we're definitely going to include that here and share that with you. And it's one that I certainly hope that Paizo is listening to. Yes, as you said, you have to succeed twice to actually deliver the spell. As most spellcasters, full spellcasters, are going to tell you in Pathfinder 2e, it's pretty easy to fail an attack roll with a spell. Our resident sorcerer here.
Yeah, I felt like 3 disintegrate.
Yes, you've only succeeded. You've only succeeded, I think, twice, and you've cast it at least 5 or 6 times. That doesn't feel good, and when you only have 4 spell slots, that's going to feel even worse.
Yeah.
Especially when your entire class is theoretically built around this idea, this concept, because why the Spellstrike is the only reason you're doing this. Otherwise, you could get more spell slots and faster progression on your spellcasting proficiency by multiclassing into another spellcasting class.
the idea behind it is that they get to do damage even if they miss the spell, but I don't think it's worth it.
Right, because you could have made the attack roll and then cast the spell.
I don't.
Yeah. The other weird thing about this is that there is no protection from attacks of opportunity. When you're casting this spell, theoretically in melee, you are provoking an attack of opportunity. And that is problematic. You do get some optional feats at higher level to mitigate your chances of losing the spell, but not to reduce your chances of getting that attack against you. And that is, that's problematic as well. So, when I said that there might be a fix for this ability, and by all means you should be testing the one that they presented as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you, once the playtest is over, or if you find out quickly that that one doesn't work for you, in the Age of Ashes adventure path, there is an NPC.
Is that free?
No. Now, you would have to purchase it. There are ways to get access to that online.
I'll make a note to link to that too.
Okay. It's something that, I'm not sure if you're going to play that adventure path, you probably don't want to get that spoiler, but if you aren't, or you already have, and you may be aware of this, but there's a character who has a Spellstrike ability. And that is a free action that is triggered when you cast a spell, and it allows you to make an attack as part of that free action to deliver that spell attack. If the strike hits, the spell affects the target.
I like that so much more.
It's so much better. If you're delivering a spell that would normally allow a save, they still have to roll that save. Now, on that ability, they get a -4 to that save. You probably don't need to do that. If you do want to keep that penalty to the target rolling the save because they've been hit with a spell strike, I would recommend you reduce that to a -1 or -2 at most. The reason for that is because I don't think it's necessary to be that strong. If anything, it's going to encourage your Maguses to use more single strikes and save those area effects for multiple targets. But whereas I think they would be far too incentivized to use fireballs only if they knew that they were going to deliver it and give a -4 to the save. This means that what was once a 3-action activity is now a 2-action activity. The reason why I think that is very important is a couple. Primarily, Pathfinder 2e is a much more mobile game. It's a game where the battlefield can move on you pretty easily. It's one where the best course of action is rarely to stand in front of something for 3 actions. Unless you're ranged, which, while that's an option, we'll talk about that, probably not what you're doing as... Exactly. While it's a cool option, as you said, most of these spells are already ranged attacks. So if you expect to be using them primarily at range, you could probably just go with more spell slots as a class that isn't designed to spell strike. Exactly. So, you are opening yourself up to be able to be more active in combat, to reposition, or to throw up some defensive action instead of spending your entire turn attacking. Or, in the case of some of these subclasses within the Magus or some of these feats and situations potentially doing nothing this round because you had to spend your whole round setting up and then hope that you can deliver everything next round and then wonder, is that comparable to what I could have done if I just cast 2 spells? One this round and one next round. Probably not. So, so that's why I think this fix is necessary. That's why I'm hoping that we see a 2-action version of spell striking, one that is not, and one that does not require you to succeed on the roll, because again, even if you had legendary proficiency, the normal spellcasting progression on this class, you're going to find these spells missing a lot. Mathematically speaking, you're going to find that you'll be lucky to succeed at half of your spell strikes right now in terms of getting both the weapon attack and the spell attack to go off at the same time. Considering this is your core class ability, the whole idea behind the class, and this is something that you can only really attempt at the highest levels 4 times a day, that doesn't feel great to me. You can still do it with cantrips, of course, but those cantrips are objectively not as strong as if you just attacked twice and had some sort of action economy or multiple attack penalty reduction feat. So again, it's just thematically for the feel of the character, it's not very satisfying the way that it works now. That ability, which we will link, might be the fix for you. Because, once the playtest ends, these playtest classes are still going to be out, still going to be able to be used. So if you and your party want to use them, right now my suggestion would be, and this may change once we playtest a little, but my suggestion would be, after the playtest is done, switch over to that ability, that version of the Spellstrike. It's significantly better. Maybe do away with the reflex save or the saving throw penalty that comes with it, or reduce it to, like I said, at most -1 or -2. And I think that's going to cover the Spellstrike.
20 minutes in. Okay, so we're going to move on to the synthesis. There are 3 different build types, 3 different types of Magus that you can make. The first one is called Shooting Star, and it is ranged, which is kind of a interesting choice. The second one is Slide Casting, which is a movement-based, I think our favorite. And the last is called Sustaining Steel. And it's a 2-handed option. So those are pretty self-explanatory, but we do want to talk about the 2-handed one because it looks a little broken.
So, we first want to say that with the Shooting Star, the ranged one, it's going to be very similar to the Eldritch Archer. There are some subtle differences to how that work. So I think that you couldn't have made a Magus without it as an option, but it could very well be that you're going to find a better way to fulfill that character role with the Eldritch Archer.
And the feats certainly don't cater to that as much as they do.
Right. Which honestly, as we'll talk about how the playtests work and how they'll add feats for the final version, but there's a good chance we'll get some more feats for that kind of build. The Slide Caster is very much the traditional Magus, where the idea is that you're using a one-handed weapon, keeping one hand free to cast your spells and things like that, and then being a pretty mobile skirmish striker. Now that's Sustaining Steel. So the weird thing here is that 2-handed weapons, and the way Spellstrike works, you have to have a hand free. And the way that 2-handed weapons work in Pathfinder 2e is that you've got to spend an interact action to regrip your weapon. So you're casting your spell and holding your weapon, using 2 actions, and then to deliver it is another action, but you probably want to regrip that spell because why are you using a 2-handed weapon if you're not going to use it 2-handed? Sure, there's things like the Bastard Sword that are versatile, can be used 1-handed or 2-handed, but the whole point of it is to get the D12, the big weapon die. So now you are doing your spell strike, you're casting your spell, and then charging it into your weapon, and then you grip your weapon and your turn is over. Which means that
does it actually break it down like that in here? Because I didn't...
It doesn't really break it down that way, but the way that Spellstrike is broken down is that way. And the way that 2-handed weapons work is that way. So you can absolutely cast your spell and hold your weapon in one hand, and it doesn't cost you anything to release your 2-handed grip on the weapon. But to get your two-handed grip back on the weapon does cost an interact action, and that's just how two-handed weapons work in Pathfinder 2e. I didn't see any feats that would help with this outside of sort of universal getting an extra action, sort of hasty feats that are there and are useful, but I mean, those are coming in at level 10 or above, I believe. And that's a lot of levels to not be able to do something for an entire turn in combat.
In trade for some temporary HP.
Yes, what it does is it gives you some temporary HP and eventually actual healing on top of that. And this is a really cool build with a lot of potential that does not work with the way Spellstrike works right now. Just as far as I can tell.
Yeah, it doesn't say anything about it. It's a pretty short section. It's only 2 paragraphs, and it doesn't say that you get to skip anything. So
yeah, there's not an action economy improvement there, which means that unless the enemy is right beside you and you are either willing to use a versatile like a bastard sword weapon and deal less damage than the two-handed weapon that is the whole point of your selection of this ability, or you have some sort of haste either from a party member or an item or yourself or whatever, then the point is it's not going to happen very often without a lot of stuff going into it. And that's probably not going to be satisfying to the point where I'm not sure that this works as intended.
We're going to try it.
We'll try it. This is another case where the the free action version that leaves your Spellstrike intact without confirming the spell attack and without having to spend an extra action to strike is the only way to make this version work, because otherwise you're attacking once every other round with your ability. Maybe that works for you. We've found that doesn't seem to work in terms of, okay, well, it's 10 minutes later and I'll finally get to contribute to this fight. And most fights, I mean, you would have been better off.
In 2e, the fights don't last as long either, it feels like.
I think 2 to 3 rounds is the most fights last.
Yeah, whereas in 1e, they could go on for a while. But
yes.
And if you have a bigger party, I mean, you might not be doing anything, right?
Right. I mean, we have 5 players, and sometimes, like I said, it can easily be 10, 15 minutes between turns, depending on, how much is changing, how prepared somebody was for their action, or how many enemies there are. So it can be very, very dramatic to just agree that part of my class is I skip a whole turn.
Yeah.
And you're not skipping it, but you're not meaningfully contributing either. So that's the sustaining steel, which is I like the concept. I just wish that it worked, and right now it doesn't.
But slide casting is cool.
Slide casting does work. That's true. You have the ability to, whenever you do your spell strike, you can move up to you can do a step, or you can stride up to half your speed. And there's a feat that actually turns that into a teleportation effect.
Cool.
And it's a teleportation effect to your full movement speed if the spell that you cast with Spellstrike was a conjuration or I think abjuration. Which means that you're potentially just blinking around the field. Could be super fun. I still don't like it even at that point that it's your full round.
One of my favorite spells in 1e was Bladed Dash. I know it's not the same because you couldn't provoke an attack of opportunity with Bladed Dash. I'm sure you can with this, but you get stuck sometimes when you're playing a spellcaster. You can't move, you can't do anything, because everything takes 2 actions. And especially I noticed that with the Witch in the playtest for the Witch, I couldn't move because of the way it was set up. But so when I saw the slide casting, I was like, that's where it's at.
Well, yeah, because, you, like you said, you're not provoking that attack of opportunity because you're casting the spell, 10, 15 feet away, or at least the step away. And unless it's something with a lot of reach, you're going to be able to get in and deliver your spell.
It's fun to, it's fun to be able to do both.
Mm-hmm. So now we talked about, the limited spell slots. We've talked about the issues with the subclasses and specifically the sustaining or the spell strike and how that works. Now let's talk about what the Magus does really well, what's really exciting about it, and that is the feats. There's a lot of really interesting things that are breaking a lot of molds.
Very unique feats.
Oh yeah. You're coming from a sorcerer, so you've seen sort of and you have the Witch as well, so you've really seen what a lot of the spell casting can be in terms of the feats and stuff. And so I think it's pretty different what this class does, as it should be, you know.
Yeah, they're not so much, and this is also kind of a complaint, but they're not so much martial. Mm-hmm. They're not damage per se. It's a lot of movement, a lot of spell manipulation in one way or another. There are feats that let you take some residual energy and use it for additional attack dice. So just for a couple, so Bespell Weapon. Mm-hmm. So this is really great, but also not. It's really great because, you know, you get a little something extra damage-wise, but because it's residual energy from the last spell you use through your weapon, and it lingers in your weapon. But it doesn't work on cantrips. So you're only able to use it the 4 times.
Right.
If they land.
If they land. Well, I think just casting it will get to the spell
I don't think you get it, right? I don't know, actually. I should know that because I have Bespell Weapon.
I feel like just casting it, even if it doesn't work, would still give it to you. But, I mean, doubly bad if it doesn't.
Yeah, so that's one thing I think could improve. I think it should apply to cantrips just because they only have 4. Mm-hmm. And then another really awesome one, and I'm not going to go through them all because they're literally like all really cool. Mm-hmm. But I do want to talk about Striker's Scroll.
Yes.
That fills in a little bit of the lack of spell slot gap. You can attach a scroll to your weapon and
deliver
have an
it
extra.
With your Spellstrike.
Yeah. So that's handy.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that it takes 10 minutes to do, but you can do that several times a day. And really, you know, if you are having 3 fights, I mean, the bad part is you are burning a lot of money that day.
But you could put like a high level disintegrate or something and have it in your back pocket ready to go for an emergency. Mm-hmm. If you know a big boss battle is coming or something like that, have it ready to go and not have to worry.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
No, I think it's good. I think it is good.
And then another one I really liked, and these are specifically, I'm talking about these to help with the
poor spell economy.
Yeah. Capture spell. So you literally, if you succeed against it, you can keep it and then throw it back.
Yes. So if a spellcaster hits you with a spell...
If somebody hits you with Fireball and you succeed, your face will burn a little and then you can throw it back to them.
Mm-hmm. Well, you could deliver it back with your sword.
Yes.
Which, again, is a spell that you didn't have to spend, but you get to deliver with Spellstrike.
Right.
Which is huge. It's
but if you've already loaded a spell in there, it said that you would lose the spell that you had.
Yeah, which can be rough. I'm sure you have it's a reaction, so you have the option not to catch that spell if you like your spell that is already in there better. But, I mean, it's just another...
It doesn't reduce damage or anything like that, but it's nice to be able to steal.
Right.
A lot of the feats, though, are movement-based, I think. Haste type things. You get more actions. They get cooler as they go. So, I mean...
And then there's a lot of spells that have, those riders, like, if you've cast a spell this round, something else happens. Like the... Spell Shroud, which gives you like a lower level buff spell that lasts until the end of your next turn.
Very good one, yeah.
Like if you use an evocation spell with one of your spell slots, which means only 4 times per day. But if you use an evocation spell, then you automatically have Fire Shield active on you, which is
You could do that with the cantrip too, though.
No, those don't work with cantrips. Unfortunately, yeah, like it'd be a lot cooler if it did.
Yeah.
And I mean, things like that could be enough to offset those few spells if they worked with it. But you've got a lot of feats like that stop being useful when you're out of spell slots for the day.
And that goes for the summoner as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which considering that, that's what you're there for is to do these things, and then all of a sudden, when you're out of one resource, you're out of most of your feat choices and everything, and you really do just become this sort of worse fighter. That's a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these feats are really good because, they're giving you this extra movement or these extra, like, sort of pseudo-hasted effects. The problem is you're taking these feats to fix a problem that only exists because Spellstrike takes 3 actions. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't feel good. When the class created the problem that you're now trying to solve, instead of giving you a unique ability, they're giving you this ability that you have to then invest more class abilities to overcome.
Yeah, because at what point is it just, why not just multi-class?
Exactly. And that's something that we really do need to talk about, is that if you multi-class with either one of these classes, what you're going to end up seeing if you fully devote to the multi-class is not only are you going to go from having 4 slots to potentially getting 8 more slots or even 14 more slots, which is an awful lot.
Yeah.
We're now more than tripling our base number of spell slots. And granted, most of them are not as strong as your slots, but it's still really nice to have low-level utility. I mean, this Magus would benefit hugely from True Strike, but it's hard to justify one of your 4 spell slots per day going to True Strike, and then you can't even use a spell that next turn to deliver a higher level spell effect. So it's rough. And those multi-classes, not only are they going to give you significantly more spells and really open up your utility, your versatility, and your how long of a day you can have adventuring, you're also going to get to master spell proficiency earlier, several levels earlier than the core class. I think it's level 17, so 2 levels earlier, which means that a multi-class fighter who casts Fireball is going to have a better success rate for 2 levels than a class that's devoted to doing this thing.
Yeah.
And he's going to have...
They won't get the super cool feats, but...
Right, they won't get the super cool feats, but...
At the end of the day, what's more important?
Well, and it becomes a question of, okay, do I start as a fighter, multi-class, to get more spell slots, and then multi-class Magus to pick up a few of these interesting feats. So I think that the class on its own is close to standing alone, but the appeal of having a multi-class dedication for both of these classes is too high right now, to the point where there's not a lot of reason not to do it.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. Now, you could limit the Spellstrike to only work on your feats or spells you get from your class. That might be a fix, but it's definitely something to consider that right now it looks like the best version of this class is a multi-class.
Yeah. We do still like it, though. I mean, it's still...
I really like it. If they change that Spellstrike feature for me, and if you get even 2 or 3 additional spells...
Yeah.
And then we see, which we probably will see, some fighter feats added in, to the final build when that releases with the book. This will probably be my favorite class. If those things are met, just my playstyle, I love a Gish concept. I also really like this concept.
We'll probably change it to do that if they don't.
Yeah, I really like this concept of this character who, has the same power, but, has split their focus so they don't have the same amount of sustainability.
It appealed to me. I mean, that's why I picked it. That's how I play Skyrim. I like to have a sword and a fireball. But I do want to talk about one more thing before we move to Summoner, and that is the focus spells. We would love to see more damaging focus spells and or a 1 action option. Okay, so I mean, with these focus spells, you get Hasted Assault, which is really good, but you get that at 14th level or so. So, that's pretty late in the game to fix the action economy problem. But it is probably going to be something that you're going to want to take. Magus Potency is a weird one because you're probably going to have a weapon with those what they call the I can't remember what they call, but the basic property runes, the potency and the striking. You're probably going to already have that. So at most, just a +1.
Yeah, it's just bonuses to hit and extra damage dice, which is something that you're going to have. This does technically give it to you, like, usually 1 to 2 levels earlier than the book recommends your dungeon or your game master giving you those items.
We'll say that's a focus 1 spell, and it does heighten up to +3, which is nice, but...
Well, still it goes up to 7th, but...
That's what I'm saying, +3.
Oh, yeah, +3 greater. And it's a greater striking, so it's extra damage dice as well.
Yeah.
It's good, but the problem is it's not going to stack if your weapon already has those things. And it probably will within 1 or 2 levels, so...
And again, like, depending what level you are, you might only have, like, one of those a day.
Right.
Or at least a fight.
Right. And so, so then you got the runic impression, and that's where you can apply... like a weapon property rune, so like flaming, keen. Some of those are very effective.
I think it'd be better just to go buy one.
Well, it's one of those things where some classes like the champion, you get a feat where you just get to have one of those constantly. This is cool because you can change it, and I'm not going to say that there's no power there because being able to change to the right element to trigger off a weakness on an enemy.
It's a big deal in 2e.
It is a big deal. It's not the most powerful thing in the world, but you get it at fairly early level. You get it before level 10, and it does drastically increase, especially with your limited spell slots, your ability to deal energy damage to trigger those weaknesses.
Yeah.
So I think it is good, and it is worthwhile. And it lasts for a minute, which means it's a nice little buff that doesn't cost one of your precious spell slots that can make you better for the entire combat. Yeah. So that's good. Or something that you can even have going before you enter combat if you know that combat's coming. Spell countermeasures is the other one. It's a very good one. It's a nice reaction to improve your defenses against a spell. There's a lot of things that do that. I don't think there's anything special there, and that's really kind of what you're saying is that there's no feats really, focus spell feats that feel like they are unique to the class, that feel like they're helping you do what the class is there to do anyway. Specifically, like you said, a single action damage spell.
Yeah, so for an example, Elemental Toss is amazing. It's one action, and it levels up with you, because it's a cantrip, right? Mm-hmm. Is it?
No.
Maybe not a cantrip, but
it's a focus spell.
It does level up with you, and there have been times we kind of homebrewed a thing, and I had it for a little while. Don't have it anymore. But I shouldn't have had it.
Well, so
it's fine. Don't have to go into it. But it was so nice because I would have a spell fail, and then I could use my one quick in casting, and then give it one more shot, and have a one action damage spell. That wasn't that bad. I mean, it was cantrip level dice, I would say. Mm-hmm. It would be cool to have something like that.
I think it would...
Even if it just charged up your blade or something, but like a lot, like a spell amount of dice.
Yeah, I mean, having that as, just something between a cantrip and a full spell that is still unlimited, but a renewable limited, I think would be huge.
Yeah.
I think
because you can get it back after 10 minutes, so that would feel better.
Yeah, it would definitely feel better.
Any damage spell that you could get back in a day. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that would go a long way to, again, making you feel like you could do your Magus thing for longer.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it on the Magus. I know we spent a long time on that.
The art's great. You should definitely download it just there.
This is in black and white.
Yeah.
Look how cool. You guys have to check it out.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about the Summoner next. It's a charisma based. I will let you say the word because I always say it wrong, even though you've taught me how to say it a few times.
The Eidolon. And you say it like, is American Eidolon? That's how you say it.
And so you get to choose which spell list you want to work with, but you have to take the corresponding Eidolon.
Ooh, nicely done.
Thank you. So the divine version, you get an angel. And the primal, you get a beast. Occult is a devotion phantom. And then arcane, you get a freaking dragon. So that's cool. And each of them have their own sort of abilities and perks that they get. For an example, the angel has once a day they can do like a 9th level spell, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's when you only have 4 spells.
Is that right? You look at me like that's not right. That's right though.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and they're like big deal spells, like remove curse kind of things. So the biggest thing about this class is you basically have a second body. You share HP, which I believe was not how it was in 1E.
No.
You also share damage. and healing.
Right.
So, I mean, you're basically connected. It kind of reminds me of Zwei from Soul Calibur.
Yeah.
But, you know, you have to be really careful because you're watching both of them on the map. So if one gets, you know, really bad, and you always take the worst damage of the two, which is pretty brutal.
Yes. So if one of you passes a saving throw, the other one critically fails it, congratulations, you both critically failed.
Yeah. So that's rough.
But, you know, that's the price you're paying. And unlike most casters, this is a 10 hit die caster, which I think the only other time we've seen that is the Life Oracle.
Okay.
I think Life or Battle Oracle, I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, you're getting more HP than is normal, certainly.
Like we mentioned before, you're still getting the same spell structure where you're losing spells. Same thing. So, heads up on that.
Yeah. But unlike the Magus, as the Summoner, you're more likely to be using those spells for lasting buffs because you aren't incentivized by other class features to use them on single strike type of effects. So, you know, while you only have those spells, you're still going to have cantrips. You are going to have some fairly worthwhile focus spells. And you're going to have the ability to, or you're going to not be incentivized to blow them on short-term gains when they're instead of adding to buffs, which is going to make them feel like they're going further.
So one big complaint I know you've had is you don't get 10th level spells, which means you can't summon...
This is wild to me, right? Like, I understand why the Magus doesn't need 10th level spells at all. It you know, I get that.
Yeah.
The thing that I don't get, and I guess this was technically true in the older Summoner version because it only got 6th level spells, but I feel like, and I can't remember, somebody let me know, I feel like it had an exploit of some sort, which so far this one does not have. My problem is, if I'm in a party with a wizard, and I'm a Summoner, the name of my class is Summoner, and then we both decide that we need some more bodies on the field, and we both cast our best summon spell, not only is mine a 9th level and therefore weaker, just by default, I'll have some buffs. I might be able to make it stronger unless he's a Conjuration Wizard, but hopefully we get that option too. But, so, not only is mine going to be a lower summon in general, but because the Wizard has access to a 10th level, and yeah, we're talking level 20 here, of course.
Yeah.
But he's going to have access to the 10th level creatures on that summon list, which I don't have access to. Which means that not only is mine weaker, but he can summon things that I can't even summon. That wizard can conjure forth a critter that I can't, and my class is Summoner. I don't like it. That doesn't feel satisfying. You know, I'm okay if I cannot do it as many times as the wizard, but mine should at least be as good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It just feels very unsatisfying to me.
That said, they do get a cantrip focus spell, which is super handy.
That is handy.
Unlike the poor Magus.
And cantrip focus spells, for those that don't know, are focus spells that don't actually cost that focus pool point, which means that you can spam them every round where it's appropriate.
Yeah, and there's...
Which one is it?
You get a +2 bonus to damage rolls in your Eidolon gets a +2 status bonus to damage rolls.
Oh, wow. And I think isn't there another one?
Oh, there is another one.
Yes.
Reinforce Eidolon.
Yes.
So that's cool. There are 2 actions.
So one of them, yeah. So they're each one action.
One action.
They're both, base level. You can pick up one or the other. And it allows you to, every round, boost your Eidolon's either attack for the boost or their defenses with the reinforce. And that's really cool. That's something that is just...
I do like that a lot.
I mean, because the idea with the class is that you're going to sit back in the back line acting as support or utility, granted limited, but hopefully, with the staff and some of the other items we talked about, making up for that. While your Eidolon is helping on the front line in a way that even other animal companions might not be able to do with where it has full autonomy.
These are actually called conduit spells. One of them also, I didn't realize this was a focus spell, or a conduit spell, not a feat, but you can extend your range that your Eidolon can go past 100 feet. So, I mean, that's pretty cool for one point.
Yeah, it's really big, yeah. I mean...
Depending on... And that's the thing, the feats are maybe a little less flashy than the Magus, but they're super useful. They're a lot of, like, swapping places and, like, I mean...
Well, and one thing that I have to say is that, unlike the Magus, you're not using these feats to fix a problem in the class.
Yeah.
You're using them strictly to get better within your class, whereas the Magus, it feels like they're Band-Aid fixes for an action economy problem that doesn't need to exist.
And these make you feel more powerful.
Yeah, and
like you're growing.
Right, rather than getting back to having the amount of versatility, mobility that a normal class would have with the Magus, here you're getting to do things that other classes just can't do.
Yeah.
And that's that's what feats should be doing for a class.
I don't think we saw too many things we would change for the Summoner.
No. I think that the Summoner
aside from the 10th level spell.
Yeah, aside from not being able to summon the best summons.
Even if it was like a feat or something.
Yeah, even if
it doesn't have to be access to 10th level spells.
Sure, even if it's a feat that you get at level 20 where you say, like, okay, I can, I have one 10th level summons slot.
Yeah.
I can't use it to cast Wish or whatever. It's got to be summon. But I think that something to do that is necessary for this class to have this name.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think that we're going to see, most likely we're going to see some more feats added in. I know that there's a focus spell that Conjuration Wizards get that can improve the Eidolon. So or not the Eidolon, but any summons that you cast. Mm-hmm. It's already getting cool stuff, like if you summon a monster, it gives off a Nova burst of damage when it's summoned.
Cool.
And
that's the stuff I want to see.
It's really cool. And there's one where if you summon a creature in like a flanking position with your Eidolon, so like Eidolon here, enemy here, you summon something into this square, your Eidolon gets to take an attack of opportunity because at the creature that's now distracted by the new monster coming in.
Yeah. Fun,
cool, interesting stuff. And the ability, like I said, transport, change places with your Eidolon means your little halfling who looks like a tasty, easy meal can have whatever the MacGuffin is, and all the monsters come rushing at him, and then you just swap places with your Eidolon, and now all of a sudden, not only is the MacGuffin away from the monsters, you do the Kansas City Shuffle, and now like you're gone with the item, and they've got to deal with this Eidolon instead of this squishy little gnome.
Can you? I think I read. Can you dematerialize and materialize Eidolon?
I think you directly switch places, but you do have...
No, I mean like in general.
Well, you can conjure the elemental or the Eidolon. I think it's got to come in adjacent to you.
Because I'm wondering, like, so you could send your dragon... I'm assuming your dragon can fly, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, you can make it fly, yes.
So if you cast the focus spell to make them go another 100 feet away, and they flew up really, really high, and you swap places, could you bamf him back to you?
You could unsummon and then reconjure as a full action. Yeah. So I mean, like you could find a place to hide. Now they don't know where you are. Mm-hmm. Then you let your Eidolon get unsummoned and then summon it back.
We get creative with some of the feats that it comes with.
Or you could just wait until that minute-long spell ends. The scary part is that if that Eidolon is back there and you're not getting rid of it, like you said, it could die, and that means you die.
Did you share HP?
Yeah, I'll have to double-check how it works, but I think the Eidolon will demanifest if it goes down, which means that you're just going to be wounded somewhere, laying down and bleeding to death, but your party can stabilize you and get you moving again, so it's not the worst case. I don't think that they can just keep tearing at your unconscious Eidolon and kill you. I might have to do a read-through if I'm wrong. I hope not. That's
we definitely, like I said, we didn't have a ton of time to super dissect this, and I think you really have to play it. To really get it. But
I think this summoner looks really fun.
It looks fun, yeah. I didn't think
weird.
I would want to play one, but I don't know. I think the feats could get really interesting if you got creative. If you thought outside the box a little bit.
Yeah, I think that they're really strange. You get some options where, a lot of your feats are upgrading your Eidolon, and then you get Transmogrify, where you can swap out which Eidolon shaping feats you've taken every day. So, like, every day your monster can be much more suited to what you think you're going to be doing that day. Even including, like, you can go from having a small monster to a bigger monster.
Yeah.
If you know you're in a city and you don't want a big, hulking, huge size, because they can get up to huge size, critter, just swap it out, make him small, and then next time you know that you're going to go back out into the world and have to, mow down giants and ogres and trolls, make him big again, whatever. So just the versatility and the fun with the class seems really great. Just like with the Magus, a few more spell slots would be very welcome.
Yeah, but I think the Magus needs it a lot more.
Yeah, and so the thing is,
you got a dragon,
right. You got this that's
or an angel or whatever, but
and you got more HP. The Magus is only 8 HP per level. You're 10 HP. Granted, it's technically for 2, but you can move because you've got 2 bodies. So you got that going for you. And you share actions. It's not quite the normal minion trait.
Yeah.
Like you share actions, and then you have feats where if I stride, he can stride. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then of course, bigger Eidolons you can ride, which is very cool. It's a really interesting, fun class. One thing I will say with the items is a staff is great where the Magus has limitations with the staff and how that works. Because you want to be doing your Spellstrike. Now there are shifting weapons. You might be able to, I'm not sure the exact rules, I'll have to double check, but you might be able to have a staff that's shifted into a sword so that you can use your staff and still get your Spellstrike off without having to juggle 2 weapons, because they don't really want you to do that. But the Summoner does not really have that problem. And because you're getting full access to high-level spells, you're getting the most points possible with that staff. So if you just want some extra utility, you've got that with the Summoner really easily. And, of course, scrolls. Now, the Ring of Wizardry is only going to work for
Good job.
I've been saying it wrong all day. Is only going to work for the Arcane Summoner right now, which is a huge buff to that tradition. But there is a possibility that this Secrets of Magic, is going to cover all the others, or at least similar items for the other traditions. And then one last thing I want to say that I don't think I've mentioned yet is there were magic items in 1E that were weapons that would store a wand in them. And I think for the Magus especially, that's going to be, it's a good book for that to show up in, and it's going to be a pretty strong addition to their repertoire.
Yeah. So I think that pretty much covers it. We'll be doing more videos on this after we play. If you guys like this content, it really helps us if you give us a subscribe. It kind of helps us out. So also tell us what kind of content you're looking for. We know a lot of people are wanting some DMing advice, some world building advice, which we really want to get to the world building videos. I think those are going to be fun.
We're having trouble right now keeping up with our class videos.
Yeah, we want to get those classes out because I know a lot of people are jumping into 2E right now. And so we're going to get those out. We have a plan to get those out a lot faster. But just also with this, like I said, since we didn't get to dissect it super deeply, put in the comments what you think, especially about, I want to hear what you guys think about the two-handed Magus specifically.
Yeah, is there something we're missing there?
Yeah,
is it better than...
like, are we just not seeing it correctly maybe? But, you know, I don't know, I just want to see what everyone says.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fun of these playtests is that, you know, we really get to see what people like. You get to see what the expectations are for a class. Like, you know, how different is it going to be for people who are new to Pathfinder in general, never saw a Magus before, seeing this class versus the people who were used to the first edition Magus. You know, those the inevitable comparisons between the Magus and the 5e Warlock. You know, people who are really familiar with 5e, you're going to see a lot of similarities to how those two play.
But also, like, we did that video on the Paladin version of the champion before we played it, and our first impressions were way different than how we felt after several games with the champion, with the like Paladin build. Everything changed. We completely changed our mind. So that might be the case here too. So I'm really excited to try it out. So that's why we want to do more videos, because we had to eat our words last time.
Which I mean, is
we ended up doing 3 videos.
I'm very happy about, because I loved Paladin in 1E. I wasn't sure about Champion, but now I love Champion. Champion is great. I think
everybody knows now that you do.
Guys, I like it. Watch 6 videos about it, please.
Anyway, we'll probably wrap this up, because we'll just keep going forever. And you actually have a D&D game to go to.
Oh my goodness, I do. Yeah, I get to be a player soon. All right, so we're gonna wrap this up. Otherwise, I will ramble on forever. But thanks so much. Really appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you try these out. And welcome to the collective.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.